Not only do these blacks have to burn the midnight oil to get into these highly regarded programs, they now have to prove themselves over and over, like Sisyphus against the stigma of inferiority. All because someone wanted a certain pigmentation on campus. And if this isn't racism, I really don't know what is. Hello, America. I'm Pastor Corey Brooks. From the south side of Chicago to the nation's capital, this is Rooftop Revelations. Many of you know me as the Rooftop Pastor. I recently spent 343 days living on top of a roof through Chicago's cold and heat to bring awareness to the violence and to raise money for this much needed community center that you see being built behind me. And because of the many donations from Americans just like yourself, we are raising the needed funds for this glorious leadership and economic community center. We aim nothing less than the full transformation of Chicago's most violent block, O Block, into Opportunity Block. Here we discuss issues, local to national, from the streets to the Capitol. For you who have been on the journey with us, welcome back. And if this is your first time watching Rooftop Revelations, we're glad you're joining us for this latest edition of Rooftop Revelation. The recent race scandal at the University of California, Los Angeles' David Geffen School of Medicine, reminded me once again of the more devastating and pressing issues facing black people: inferiority. What struck me the most about this scandal was how the Dean of Admissions, Jennifer Lacerio, was willing to sacrifice meritocracy on the altar of diversity to admit an unqualified black prospect. We're not talking about the humanities or the political sciences, where mistakes can easily be swept under the rug, but about a medical school whose sole mission is to create the future wave of doctors capable of saving lives. Not only that, Lacerio was more than willing to break the California law that prohibits public universities from using race as consideration during the admissions process. Are we really this inferior that these institutions must bend over so far to accommodate our inferiority? Under slavery and segregation, we were told by whites and by our nation's laws that our inferiority, our subhumanness, was the reason for our bondage. Since the 1960s, many of us have made the point of embracing our newfound freedoms to prove that color of our skin did not limit our abilities. Yet, due to largely leftist policies and its prevailing attitudes, that nasty inferiority continues to shadow us to this day. When Lacerio was challenged by other admissions officers, weary of compromising marriage, she countered, "Did you not know African-American women are dying at the higher rate than everybody else?" Then she said the unqualified black candidate scores shouldn't matter because we need people like this in the medical school. People like this? Think about that for a moment. Lacerio valued blackness so much that she was willing to rationalize and explain away the candidate's lack of qualifications. In valuing blackness in the perverse manner, she ended up devaluing us, and in the worst possible way. I know there are great black students at the school who are more than qualified to be where they are. I see this talent around my impoverished Southside neighborhood every day. One of my mentees who grew up in the projects next to my church is now getting his education at NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab. Is it fair that these brilliant black students are stigmatized as inferior because Lacerio and her DEI peers value skin above all? Shelby Steele wrote that when people argue for diversity and thus for racial preferences, black students are effectively Samboized. They are assigned inferiority so intractable that nothing overcomes it, not even good schools and high family incomes. What UCLA, Lacerio, and DEI officers around America are guilty of is stigmatizing blacks so heavily that it is the equivalent of handing down a sentence. Not only do these blacks have to burn the midnight oil to get into these highly regarded programs, they now have to prove themselves over and over, like Sisyphus against the stigma of inferiority. All because someone wanted a certain pigmentation on campus. And if this isn't racism, I really don't know what is. Sadly, there is another aspect to this inferiority, one that affects my neighborhood on the south side of Chicago. To be born into my neighborhood is to be born into a world of inferiority, created by one liberal policy after another since the 60s. When I see a newborn, a part of me cannot help but to think of how that child will grow up conditioned by these policies of dependency, policies created by people who disbelieve in that child's ability to succeed in life. What they would never give that child is the pathway out of inferiority, a quality education, an emphasis on two-parent households, teaching the value of hard work, discipline, resilience, responsibility, and accountability. What they will do instead is let the child coast through life, never demanding anything. And if that child should have a dream, they will make it up that inferiority with a racial preference, just like they did with the black student at UCLA. That is why I argue that this inferiority is one of the biggest problems facing Black America. The only way for us to overcome this inferiority is to reject it wholeheartedly. When our people marched for our rights in the 60s, they claimed they were no different from any race and they were just as capable. Listen, it is time that we stand on our own 2 feet, sink or swim. God bless you and God bless America.